Hello everybody. You guessed it, it is Saturday and I am on my way home from work and we are going to talk a little bit about my week. So these are some things that I worked on this week. Enjoy. Okay, so I wanted to start by showing you the CAD file for the site model that we made for Studio. So this is essentially what we started with. Was this model. So you can see we've got roads and bridges here. We've got some buildings. And essentially our site is here and here. Here you can see these lines are the change in the topography. And it's at 2-foot increments. So the way to go about separating all of these contours is to do a process like this. So first what we did was we hid all of these elements for the buildings and the streets and the land plots, and we were left with only the contours. So for this, the red lines are cut lines and then the blue is the etch. And the reason that you etch is you etch where the next layer is going to go so that you know exactly where to place it. So what would be etched on this layer would then be cut on the next layer, which you will see here. So in that last frame, we had this as the etch and now it's the cut, and then we have the next layer after that as the etch. So here you can see all of the different layers. And all of these boxes are the 18 by 32 sheet, which is the biggest size that our laser cutter can cut. So that's how we separated each part of the site. And so you just keep working your way out, and eventually you will have all of the contours that you need to build up your site for your site model. So the way that this works is that this entire area here would essentially be the piece to use for the site model, as well as this piece here. So you just keep working your way. And you can see the closer that these lines are together, the steeper the slope is of the site. And so this is our last piece. So you can see these are very small pieces. And so once you have this base down, what I like to do is copy all of this work in case any mistakes happen. So we copied all of these sheets and pasted them down here, and what we do here is you add all of this other information. So this is where you have all the buildings, the streets, the bridges, and all of the other details that can be etched in. And so you just kind of take the skeleton of that and you paste it over those contours. And so in this case, the green and the blue are etch lines and the red is cut. So here now you can see all of the different buildings with their respective heights. So it looks a little crazy, but once you break it down, it gets a lot more simple. It's a lot easier to understand. We could have cropped out the information outside that occurs outside of these contours, but that would just take extra time, and sometimes it's not worth it. And it's really good when you can etch in the buildings with the numbers, so that when you cut out all of the buildings, it's a lot easier to figure out more quickly where they all go. Okay, so that's it. So in terms of our studio site model, I ended up having to work a little bit more than I expected to on our site model, which is both kind of annoying but also good in a way, because now I really know a lot more about the site than I originally did, and it was a cool experience to see it all come together. We used a variety of different adhesives. We used a spray adhesive, wood glue, and Sobo glue. So we used wood glue for the base, we used spray adhesive for each layer, and we used Sobo glue for each building. So we found this out just by simply trial and error, seeing which glues would work best for each condition, and that's what we came up with. We had a lot of issues with, since the veneer was so thin, when we used wood glue, the really thin layers would start to wrinkle a little bit, and we found that using the spray adhesive worked really, really well for the thin layers that we had. Another issue that we had was, when we first started out, we didn't exactly have the base all put together, so we decided to glue some of the layers together without having them attached to the base, so they started to curl, which was not good. And then once we tried to glue them to the base, they wanted to keep curling up, so we had to clamp them and weigh them down for a good few days before it started to really adhere to the base of the model. It's almost done. We still have a few more buildings to make and a few more pieces of the site to cut out, but we're getting there. This is what it looks like. Crazy week for me. I've been trying to figure out my internship situation for this coming summer, and I'm trying to get my cover letter all together with my portfolio and deciding which firms I want to apply to. And I've also been working a lot on studio, and I haven't done too much for thesis prep in the past week. And I've done a lot of cool things analyzing Christian Kerez's Leutschenbach, I don't know how to say it, Leutschenbach School in Zurich, Switzerland, which is one of the coolest buildings I've ever seen. So definitely look up that building. I'll put it in the description below because I do not know even remotely how to say the name of that building. So in terms of our studio project, as you know, we have the biomass plant, the high-rise building, and the pedestrian bridge. And so we have 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 4 in our studio. So ideally each person would design one of those 3 structures, but my group happened to be the group of 4. And we ended up having 2 people that wanted to work on the bridge, and they really couldn't decide who should do the bridge and who should do another housing facility. As you may have seen in my last vlog video, I am doing the housing building, which is what I really wanted to do. And we have someone else that wanted to do the biomass center. And ideally we would have 2 housing buildings, 1 biomass plant and 1 pedestrian bridge. So the fight was over who would get to do the pedestrian bridge and who would have to do the extra housing building. So the way that they settled this, like architects, they decided to have a little design charrette where the 2 people that really wanted to do the bridge put together their own ideas and concepts for what they wanted, for what qualities and program and form of the bridge that they wanted to do. They got 5 people to listen to them pitch their ideas and critique them and figure out who should do the bridge. And I thought this was fascinating and really entertaining, so I decided to film it. So here's the little clip of what that was like.
I'm not seeing much like potential with how you're trying to resolve like the sun shading. Like, it's just like kind of like an arch that maybe looks people.
Where do you go from
you
there?
You only get one view in from the first.
Where do you
floor.
go from there is sort of a question. What do you mean one view?
You were saying that like there's like a view connection from the first floor, right?
Oh well, yeah. I was talking about the view through this building.
Oh,
that was a general idea that all of our group members had to lift this building up on pylon.
On a pilot, a wooden lattice pilot, which is going to be then hinted through here.
Well, it doesn't have to be lattice though. Basically, the idea of this whole arch is that a lot of the precedents we looked at is how long wood can span. What are its maximum limits of spanning. So that's why I wanted to have the idea of a really long arched bridge, or just a long arch, whether it's structural. Technically you have all these pillars here, so we're not really designing the structure of the bridge.
So the results ended up being 3-2. It was really close. So the person with the computer rendering that I showed ended up getting to do the bridge, and the other person is now doing the second housing facility. And so I'm really interested to see how our ideas are all going to mesh together, and I will have to keep you updated on that. On Tuesday, we have our first review for this project, so we'll be presenting as a group our master plan for the overall site, and then we have individual presentations on our basic concepts for what we want to do with our areas of the site and our specific structures that we'll be designing. So that will be on Tuesday, and hopefully I'll have some models, or I can get a little bit of footage of what that'll be. I'll try to get what I can, and I don't know, it's snowing again. For those of you that are in warmer climates right now, you don't even know how jealous I am of you. So over the snow. Okay. Have a great week. See you next Sunday.